Welcome to a new episode of AW Confidential. For years, Ashley Madison was associated with married dating. Now it's repositioning itself around something called ethical discretion. We're living in a time where nothing feels private anymore. Everything is visible, shareable, searchable. So when a platform says discretion, it has value, but that also raises some cultural questions. Today, I want to unpack as much as we can what's actually shifting, not just in branding, but in how people are approaching relationships. To help me explore the topic, I have a very special guest. We have and he's going to correct me if I'm wrong. I always say this. Paul Keable,
That is correct.
Chief Strategy Officer at Ashley Madison. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on today. And you did a perfect job with my name.
I love it. Okay, I love to pronounce names correctly. It's a pet peeve. So I really I read the release of the press release, and I know Ashley Madison, and I am curious. When you say ethical discretion, what does that actually mean in just the day-to-day platform? How has it? I want to understand your the evolution. Can you
Yeah, that's a great
share?
absolutely. So the whole premise of Ashley Madison since our founding 20 some odd years ago was this idea of helping people meet and match under the cover of discretion. Now, obviously, the origins of Ashley Madison were based on putting two married people together as they explored their versions of monogamy or non-monogamy, depending on your viewpoint. But over the years, we've seen our membership really transition. We started to see more and more people coming who would have identified themselves as disclosed non-monogamists, meaning their partners were aware, if not participating, in their Ashley Madison activities. And then last year, we saw this trend really accelerate with more than 57% of our membership signing up identifying as single. So they weren't coming to us for the reasons we had launched our business. And so talking with our members and starting to see the bigger trends in dating, what we understood is there is this fatigue with living everything online. We've been in the social media era for 20 years. And so ethical discretion really is a idea that says to people, your business is yours. And what you choose to do is yours to share with whom you want to share with. And it doesn't need to be with everybody. And it's not based on shame or guilt. It's simply based on the idea that my business is mine and it's none of yours until you're lucky enough to be invited into it. And I think this really, suits a lot of our female members because the traditional dating app scene asks them to put all of their content online for everybody to see. It's a public shopping catalog for the world. And, a lot of different people who are not, the intended targets for a lot of these women are seeing these profiles, sending them DMs. And in the worst case scenarios, they're seeing them and they're coming into work and actually talking to that person because they happen to be colleagues, even though they're not really a match. And this has put a lot of frustration into the dating world for women. So we think through discreet dating, through ethical discretion, we're creating a place where adults can come, find people that match their interests and needs without the whole world watching.
Do you find is there any way to know whether you have more females than males or just about the same, or are you seeing a pattern of any kind?
So it's an interesting question, and all dating apps are going to be different based on region and city. We actually brought in Ernst and Young a number of years ago to actually validate that question because people ask us that all the time. And at that point, we had 1.13 active females for every one paid active male. So depending on the region in the country, you're going to see a different level of ratios, but we're pretty happy with the balance as it is right now.
Nice. Okay. Thank you for explaining that because when I read ethical discretion, it threw me off. I'm not gonna lie, it threw me off. You also mentioned, and I have it. I actually have it in my notes in that announcement where you shared the 57% of new members now identify as single. That sort of just it was a flag for me. Do you think that's signaling a shift of any kind on how people are approaching relationships or, what do you think there's something there?
Yeah, I think there is. There's this aspect of being tired of living this perfectly curated life where every function and aspect of my world is put online for everyone else to scrutinize. And in the dating world, it's become problematic with bad behavior. And like as I mentioned before, people having to expose their profile to others that they don't necessarily want them to see. The perfect example is the work colleague. If I wanted to date someone at work, I'd ask them out. I don't necessarily want someone in my office seeing my profile and then making a comment, even if it's meant in jest or lightheartedly. That's not appropriate. And I think a lot of women are really getting fatigued in it. And I think if you look at the news as it relates to some of our more traditional dating app competitors, they're running into some of these headwinds too, and they're looking for different ways. I think a lot of them are enhancing some of their product features, whereas we're really leaning into what our community is asking of us. With 57% of all new signups last year being single, our membership is dictating this change less so than we are.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I won't mention the social media channel, but there is a professional social media and as a woman I'm getting messages from randoms and I'm and my thought is I thought this was a professional platform, but I'm getting different. It's changing, it's evolving into something different, and I don't want to mix professional with social. It's a very fine line there that we're crossing, and I'm not comfortable with it, and I don't think I'm the only woman.
You are one of hundreds of thousands, I quite frankly think, for women who are just tired of inappropriate behavior. And sometimes it's not intended to be. I'm not saying that
Right.
all individuals are acting with malfeasance. They're just not understanding the barriers because we live in this world where, okay, I've seen your picture, you're looking to date. Is it unreasonable to make a comment? But the problem is, just as you said, in a professional environment, that's not what you're looking for. Talk to me about the issues that pertain to why you and I are colleagues. But when it comes to dating, you have an intention, you have an interest. And what we believe fundamentally is, particularly from the female perspective, this level of discretion is going to be very attractive because it gives women more control over who they interact with and who interacts with their content.
It's those boundaries that I love so much that are, yeah, they're being crossed. I can't lie. So we've spent, and you've mentioned that a couple of times, we've spent years living life out loud online. It's everywhere. Now with social media and AI amplifying everything, there's no privacy. There really isn't. Do you think that people are pulling back because they want more privacy or more control over their story? Do you think there's
I
one?
think it's a combination of both. People want to have ownership over their content, over who interacts with it more importantly, and more I think it's an aspect of I don't need to be validated with clicks and likes. If I'm in the intention of dating, I'll communicate with those that I think are, potentially of interest to me, but I don't want to facilitate, ongoing comments and messages from people on platforms that are not associated with dating or shouldn't be, and definitely not within the workplace. And so I'll give you a great example. Traditionally, if you go on to most singles dating apps, you have to put up all your different pictures that anybody who has a membership can see. Whereas Ashley Madison, our community rarely has a face forward profile picture. We have a photo locker. And what you can do is that you read the profile, and if I think, oh, it seems like if I might be somebody I might be interested in. And so I can communicate with her. And if we build up a level of trust, she can send me her key that I can access her photos. No screen capping allowed. And then in doing so, she has complete control over who sees her full array of images. And at any point, she can revoke that key from me, taking away my access. And we think tools like that are really where discretion and ownership over, who I am and what I want to put out in the world is really going to separate us from the competition.
That's a standout, I have to say, Paul. That is a standout. I love it. I love the key. And I love you mentioned there's a screen, you can't take a screenshot.
So if you're using our apps, we've put in screen capture blocking algorithms so that again we give people control over their content on our apps.
It's appealing, I have to say. I have to say I wasn't expecting it. Now, we've spoken about discretion quite a bit. It's central to the platform. What responsibility comes with that from your
Well,
perspective?
from us, it's a massive amount of responsibility. We're, holding very intimate information from our members, the conversations they're having with different people, the images they have. These are all intimate in nature, regardless of, whether they're explicit or not. That's not what I'm talking about. And I think people are recognizing that they want ownership over that. So we take a huge responsibility in terms of how we protect our members' privacy and discretion and their security. And all those facets are a function of every single person's responsibility at Ashley Madison. So obviously we have an amazing leading edge security team, but we also have a privacy officer, and it's every single person's responsibility to think through, if we're doing this today, how does this enable our members to have better control over their privacy and discretion?
What what I have so many questions for you. So there's obviously been an extreme shift from where Ashley Madison started to now. What helped you sort of evolve into what it is today? Was it the demand? Was it just a rebranding because of its history? What's behind that?
I think, we really look back to around 2020. We saw about a 30% increase in our business because of a lot of the COVID lockdowns. And it changed a lot of people's life patterns. It was a recognition that, hold on, I'm taking some things for granted and I want more out of life and I'm not getting it. So whether that was people expanding their version of monogamy, people seeking to take control and ownership over their identity online, different people started to show up at Ashley Madison over those years. And like I said earlier, at one point we were tracking roughly 20% of our membership would identify as disclosed non-monogamists, people who were, again, participating with their partner's knowledge, if not participation. And now that we see increasingly more and more singles coming on board, we're understanding in talking with them that they're seeking a different type of dating experience. They might be looking for a life partner, but what they're not looking for is to put themselves out to the world for everybody to see. They're curating their experiences and talking to people in a more targeted fashion based on their level of interest and matching, and not simply just aesthetics. Those still matter. All those pictures still exist, but there's a matter of control over who has access to them.
And I can't mention the other app's name, but is Ashley Madison planning to be sort of like a membership, or is there a selection process? What is that like?
No, it's free to join for anybody, 48 countries around the world. And we operate a little bit different. We don't have a traditional subscription model. You buy credits to message another person. So I'll spend 5 credits to send a message to somebody. And if that individual responds to me, our communication going forward can then be free, absent any credits if you want it to be. So it's a really different model. And we think it creates a far better dynamic for the men and the women who are signing up on a daily basis.
This is a huge shift, I have to say. It's almost revolutionary.
It's more evolutionary for us in a sense because a lot
Evolutionary,
of the
yes.
things that are, we're talking about today have always been at the core of Ashley Madison: discretion, privacy. But I think a lot of the ideas that, helped us found our business were based on the idea people wanted to hide things, possibly out of ideas of shame or guilt. But we're now in a position where we understand our members have very little, if not no shame or guilt about what they're pursuing, but nor do they want to share it with the world, with their colleagues, with their family, or with their kids. It's really about curating an experience that is, private to me and the individual or individuals I'm speaking with, and not for the whole world to see.
And I think as time goes by, we're looking for more privacy and discretion. So kudos to you. Now
Thank you.
we're talking about this bigger shift. Since you're in this space, what do you think dating will look, and we don't know. But what do you think dating will look like in the next 5 years?
I think more and more people are going to take ownership and control. I think there's been a passive approach to dating in a sense. Put up our profiles and see what that attracts. And that certainly has been valid and worked for nearly 2 decades. But I think people want a little bit more ownership, a little bit more control over who sees their profiles, how they get interacted with. And in doing so, I think people are going to take um, into spaces that are a little bit more targeted to their particular interests versus the mass mainstream apps that everybody will use. They're not going away, but they're already shifting. You can see it.
Dating fatigue.
Yeah. I think the dating fatigue is a misnomer. People wanna date, they wanna connect, they want to find people for a range of activities, but what they're fatigued about is the digital experience that takes away their control, takes away their ownership of that experience. That's the difference. Women are dropping out of a lot of these dating apps, not because they don't want to find someone or date or have these great, experiences. They're just fatigued with having to deal with so many inappropriate comments. And let's be frank, there's a lot of inappropriate pics that men send, and I wish to God that these guys would stop doing that, but not everyone will listen to us.
It's a turn off, not a turn on, I have to
It
tell
is
you.
a turn off. And, we have a function on our side. Women can choose. I can't receive an intimate image. So if a member were to send one, it would show up saying, this is blurred. You can't see it until you willfully click on it, so that women know, okay, behind this blur, there's something I may not want to see. But if you do want to see it, fantastic. But we give women that control.
I am loving you today, Paul. So, I could keep you here for another hour, but one of the things that I love to do at the end of the show is end every conversation with something I call a truth bomb. So, if discretion is becoming more valued in modern dating, what has to be present between two people for it to actually work?
I think regardless of the nature of your dating intentions, honesty and transparency and authenticity more than anything else is at the core of a successful match. Obviously, you're going to look at aesthetics and geography and interests, but if you're not your authentic self, you're not going to lead to successful connections and dates. And let's be frank, anywhere from the casual connections to the long-term relationships, both men and women are looking for these types of dynamics. But what they both want more than anything else is a little bit of authenticity, which is vulnerability. And that's why we think with our discrete platform and our discrete community, we're giving people a little bit more comfort to have that vulnerability because they're not going to expose it to the world. They're only going to expose it to those they seek to sort of make that connection with. And I think that difference is going to be quite dramatic over the next couple of years.
Well, congratulations on the rebranding. I have to say, I am sold, Paul. I am sold. How do we find out more about Ashley Madison?
You can log on at ashleymadison.com. It's a fantastic place for everybody.
Thank you so much for being here. Whether you agree with the model or not, one thing is clear. We are connecting in a different way today than we did decades ago. Privacy, autonomy, visibility, these aren't small conversations anymore. They're shaping modern relationships. And the real question isn't about discretion, it's about clarity. This is AW Confidential. Let's keep having conversations that matter. I will talk to you soon, loves.